Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So our tweet of the day comes from former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, who tweets out, Citizens United disaster in a nutshell. He says, in 2008, before the ruling, billionaires contributed $31 million to federal campaigns. In 2020, billionaires contributed $1.2 billion. He says that's a 40-fold increase. It never had to be like this. And look, this is what Citizens United did. This is, as my next guest points out, the best democracy money can buy. In fact, he's the man who wrote the book, the fabulous book, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And you can get that at gregpalast.com. Greg Palast is an investigative journalist, has written numerous books, got a new film coming out this fall. I'm very excited to see Vigilantes, Georgia's voter suppression hitmen. Looking forward to seeing this. That's why I've asked our good friend Greg Palast to come share some thoughts. Greg, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, glad to be with you, Rick.
Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Best title for a book ever. And look, look at the numbers that Robert Reich, the former Labor Secretary, points out. He's right. It doesn't have to be like this, does it?
Well, it doesn't have to be like this, but you know what? They've got the money, we've got the people, and that still will make the difference.
Yes, I used to argue that. We've outprocreated them, yes, but if they keep blocking us from being able to vote, if they keep erecting barriers and purging people off of the voting rolls and saying, you were a felon in several years, so you can't vote today, what does it matter?
Well, actually, isn't it interesting that they have to steal the elections? That's very, very important. I mean, you got to give an up to America because our elections get stolen. And I know you can't say that. I got to be very careful when I say stolen election. You could get pulled off the air by YouTube or
you're not going to get me banned. Things. You're getting me banned.
Right. So I have to say so instead we use the polite term voter suppression, which is a fancy term for screwing people out of their vote, mostly black people, young people, and other people of color being blue. And so I just came back from Georgia, and your condolences are accepted. I spent a month sweating and uncovering the latest in deep evil. We'll use that term vote suppression because we can't say stolen election. Vote suppression. And there's a new voting law in Georgia, which has got a lot of attention called SB 202, signed by Brian Kemp, the governor. But what I've seen zero national coverage of, nothing, is the worst part of the bill. There's this hidden little thing that says that any voter in Georgia can challenge the right of any other voter in their county to vote. And the challenges can be unlimited. Now, okay, what does that mean? It means that I, Greg Palast, can say, don't let Rick Smith vote. I challenge his right to vote because I think he's not really a proper voter. And so are they using this? Well, I can tell you right now that I met with the champ, the woman running for GOP vice chair of the Georgia party. She's a GOP official. These are not government agents. These are all individuals. She personally challenged 32,000 voters' right to vote in Georgia. That hasn't gotten 1 inch of publicity. I met with another guy.
Stop. 32,000? Does she even know 32,000 people?
Well, that's what I asked her. I said, it says she signed an affidavit saying that, I have information that these people are not proper voters. 32,000 in just Cobb County, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And so I went to her. You'll see in the film. In fact, I recommend everyone go see part of at least our little discussion, which was which you can catch at gregpalast.com. There's a trailer there for the film, and you'll see a woman dressed in Nancy Reagan red and her nice high heels and very formal, and she's so proud of the fact that she has challenged 32,000 voters. She is endorsed by Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she said she knocked 10,000 doors for Donald Trump. But since that didn't work, that is, Joe Biden won Georgia, and so did a black guy and a Jewish guy. It really disturbs her. So she said it was stolen. So she's now challenged 32,000 Biden voters on their right to vote. And she said that she had information. She signed an affidavit. So I said, did you contact any of these people? No. Did you call them? She said, how can I call 32,000 people? In fact, she said, I couldn't, the list was so long, I couldn't even afford to print it out. So I handed in a thumb drive. I can't make this up. And so I showed her, but before I did that, I showed her a picture of a woman she had challenged. Tamara Horn is her name, a black woman. I said, do you know Tamara Horn? No. Have you ever called her? Oh, no. Have you ever met her? Have you been to her house? No, because she thought I was saying, oh, I'm, like, here's a known, it's a female black woman. So most black women are female. And she said, like she thought, oh, must be a crack dealer that he's trying to associate me with. No, it's just someone trying to vote. She didn't know who the hell she was. Yeah. I showed her a guy on his honeymoon. I said, you know this guy, Storm Saul? No, never met him. I said, you challenged his right to vote. You don't know where he lives, but you said he doesn't live where he lives. I just went to his house. I was just there at his house. So then she, like a nice, upright Republican, her husband, she told me, get out or I'll call the police. And then her husband ran out and seized me. It's like, but I wasn't joking around because the house was filled with guns and ammo. And they had this loaded, and I know it was loaded, shotgun right next to the door. And so I said, I'm leaving. And then she began calling me an a-hole and other language more appropriate for a Republican county.
There's
chairman,
that Southern hospitality.
Southern hospitality with the shotgun. And so we were out of there. And then I met another guy who actually also was carrying around a loaded gun because he plays a vigilante. It's kind of a side gig. Excuse me, Anthrax. But he plays Doc Holliday, a vigilante. You remember the Wyatt Earp's vigilante partner at the OK Corral? Yeah. And he was telling me this great story. His Doc Holliday's his hero. So he said there was this one incident where, because he's a Georgian, where he went to a watering hole where he liked to swim. And there were 3, as he says, African-American boys. I looked it up. They were Union soldiers, African-American Union soldiers who were bathing in the lake. So Doc Holliday shot them dead. And he said, but then he said, he's a really classy guy. He's a good guy. He's a really classy guy. What he didn't expect is he had actually also, he didn't shoot him, but he did challenge several African-American soldiers who'd been, assigned out of Georgia. So they asked for absentee ballots. So he challenged their right to vote, including a guy, Major Turner, who I met here in California. He was assigned here by our commander-in-chief. He's the guy who's designed the latest updates on new special anti-tank weapons that we're sending to Ukraine. He's career military. And this guy challenged his vote. And what was interesting, you'll love this, Rick, when we met this vigilante challenger, he challenged 4,000 people in Columbus, Georgia, 4,000 people. And I said, and I introduced him to Major Turner. I said, you ever met Major Turner? No. Do you know where he lives? No. He lives in this house that you're in right now. And the house that you said he didn't live in.
Right.
And you challenged his right to vote. And the major said, I was assigned to California by the military. So I asked for an absentee ballot, and you stopped me from getting my ballot. And, the guy was, and then the guy was, flummoxed, of course, but, he wouldn't, and all he asked for, the major, was an apology. And the guy would not give him an apology. And now, this is not just a guy. This is the chairman of the Republican Party in the county, right, who's also very close to Governor Kemp, and he is one of the chieftains of the state party on their state committee.
That's what I was going to ask you, because this sounds coordinated. It sounds like there's someone behind all of this, and gee, who could that be?
And that's 88 operatives, everyone a Republican Party operative, 81 of them, county chairman, state committeemen, etc. They say, it's not coordinated.
So let me ask you the other side of this real quick.
Yeah.
So what's to stop someone say, I don't know, anyone, one of the people who have been challenged from going, every Republican chair in the state, I challenge their vote?
Well, excuse me, 2 things. One, that we don't do that. we don't match suppression with suppression. What we are trying to do is expose it. warn the people. I'm working with Black Voters Matter, Latasha Brown, to get the word out to voters that they've been challenged, because most don't know they've been challenged. The way it works, you get challenged. In most cases, what was unusual about the major is he didn't get his absentee ballot. Usually what they do is they send you the ballot, you mail it in, but then they don't count it. The only way you get your ballot count is to know you've been challenged and go into a court-like hearing at the county, at your county board, to prove you are who you are. It's pretty hard if the commander-in-chief has sent you to Ukraine or to Poland or to California because of the war. So this is the game that they're playing. Yeah, I mean, we could do tit for tat, but I suspect also is that they have planned for that. And the first thing that they would do is reject those challenges. Now, just so you know, that there's a lot of Republican officials. In fact, most Republican county clerks, not the politicos, but the clerks, refuse to take these challenges at first, which is why it's in SB 202. If they don't accept the challenges, a new state board of elections can remove that county board and its members if they don't do what they want. And guess who's the new county elections board is headed by? Governor Kemp.
There you go.
So Brian Kemp has been playing. This is like, and what I'm very worried about, and by the way, you know where these guys got the list? Because, this lady in red, this GOP official and the vigilante, I mean, you may think of him as a joke, but he's the big power in Georgia. I said, where did you get these lists? He says, I don't know. And she wouldn't tell me at first. And finally, we looked it up. It all came from that Texas group that you love, Rick, True the Vote. Those are the guys that came up with that goofy film, 2,000 Mules, which proved that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. And by the way, so I actually, and in our film, which will be coming out in the fall, Vigilantes, Georgia's vote suppression hitmen, about Kemp. One of the things that we do take on that film, because they concentrate on Georgia, they say thousands, they say hundreds of mules, black men. They show it's always black men who are paid $10 a vote to stuff ballot drop boxes. Now, this is serious because as a result of this film, there are basically no drop boxes now in the state of Georgia for people to drop off their ballots. And there's fewer and fewer opportunities to vote. So you end up saying, instead of being able to drop your ballot into a box, you have to wait 5 hours in line. And by the way, if someone hands you a bottle of water in the Georgia heat, they can go to prison for 5 years.
Right.
Under SB 202. So, it just piles up. But, so one of the things is that I looked, and they use something called geo-tracking. It looks really dramatic, like they know exactly where someone's been. And they show, this mule going to 28. They said, oh, we've got this guy that you're seeing, because remember, every single drop box in America has a security camera on it. So when you vote by drop box, you're filmed. And it's stamped. And, of course, every single ballot, your ballot, what's inside your ballot is secret. But people have to recognize, turn over your ballot, you see a barcode. Every ballot, and, of course, as your address, the fact that you voted and the fact that this is your ballot is not secret. It can't be. See, it has to be a real ballot. But they're saying all these ballots were stolen.
Yep.
And but here's the funny thing. The geo-tracking that they use to show if someone's gone from drop box to drop box is only accurate within 93 feet. So anyone who's like jogging by on the other side of the highway is a mule. In fact, and they keep saying here that we have some people go by these same drop boxes 20 times in a month. So I was saying they should rename the film, instead of 2,000 Mules, they should rename it 2,000 Mailmen. They're
just doing their job.
So, but this is the group that's come up with this hit list. And by the way, it's 300,000. I want to repeat that number. 300,000 voters have been challenged by these GOP operatives, and there's not one word in the national press about this story.
We're
going to break it, but I will break it out.
I'm looking forward to the film. The film Vigilantes, Georgia's vote suppression hitman. I can't wait to see this. GregPalast.com, where you go to get more information. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're with Greg Palast, investigative journalist, author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Ours. That book for me opened up a lot of my eyes on, with 2000, you go back to voting while black, the voting perjury, Catherine Harris, Jeb Bush, all the shenanigans that went on there, Choice Point. every election cycle seems to have a new gimmick. You go 2000, you know, the hanging chads and the butterfly ballots and the purging that went on. 2004, the caging that happened. You know, every time they come up with a new voter ID in 12, there were all these new gimmicks. The latest gimmick then, right?
Yes, it's whack-a-mole. I mean, you understand, I've been going back to Georgia for 9 years because it's in Georgia where they test drive their vote suppression techniques. So, for example, they came up with this thing, use it or lose it, where if you supposedly, again, they're looking to see if you've moved. We had experts when Stacey Abrams ran for governor against Brian Kemp 4 years ago. We were able to show the state, and we went to court with it, 340,144 voters, a third of a million voters, were wrongly purged from the voter rolls by the Secretary of State, who, by the way, his name is Brian Kemp, and the candidate for governor was Brian Kemp. Even the Wall Street Journal said that's unethical. But he was
It's Georgia.
That's Georgia, and he was channeling his friend Chris Kobach, who was Secretary of State while running for governor of Kansas, who he was working with. I had to win a federal court case to open up the email chain between him and Kobach, Chris Kobach of Kansas. If you can't remember the name, just think KKK, who is Donald Trump's kind of mastermind of vote suppression techniques, and he works closely with Brian Kemp. And so Kemp just has new techniques. And you know what makes me ill, Rick? Brian Kemp and his Secretary of State, who is the most racist, vicious Secretary of State since Catherine Harris of Florida back in 2000. MSNBC's playing these people like heroes because they got in trouble with Trump, but they are to the right of Trump on most issues.
No, I don't give
their problem with Trump is that he's not far right enough.
Yeah, I don't give Raffensperger credit for anything other than wanting to stay out of jail.
Yes, and so what happened is that he got to the point where there were 29 phone calls. He's only this is the Secretary of State of Georgia. There were 29 phone calls. He only recorded one. And he knew he was going to record that, so he did a cover your ass, stay out of jail recording, because he knew a grand jury was going to end up looking into this. And he still, by the way, has not turned over to the grand jury the other tapes and the other information. He's refused. Why? If you're trying to get out the truth, why won't you tell a grand jury? Why do they have to threaten you with imprisonment, which is what they're going to have to do to get the real information from these characters, because they are in on the big steal. And the thing is that they just couldn't steal enough. We went to court against Raffensperger and Kemp. When I say we, I was with the NAACP and with Operation Rainbow Push and Black Voters Matter. And we went to court, and we got an order to require Raffensperger to explain why our list of 198,000 people wrongly removed from the rolls shouldn't be put back on. He literally locked his office, turned out the lights, and hid inside rather than meet with us, and stalled us till after that election. They still lost. That was the 2020 election and the runoff for the Senate, in which the Democrats won that one too. Because they can't. Here's the good news, Rick. They can't steal all the votes all the time. But if you go to gregpals.com, you can see us chasing the Secretary of State around the state building. But to consider Raffensperger or Brian Kemp some type of heroes, it's very dangerous stuff. And they've been getting a pass from the national press, which has Trump derangement syndrome. If Trump doesn't like you, you must be wonderful. Trump doesn't like him because they wouldn't go to jail for him.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
They didn't find the 12,000 votes that Trump wanted when Trump thought he won by 400,000. And this is the weird part for me. If you thought you won by 400,000, why are you only asking for 12,000? Ask for your 400,000 votes. If you won by 400, you want your 400,000 votes. Well,
they also said, he said the proof was that they had 77,000 illegal votes in the drop box in Fulton County, which is, by the way, more than all of the votes in the drop boxes in Fulton County. So in other words, Trump had more than all the votes stolen from him. But even beyond that, you have to look at who is being removed. And for example, if you go to our website, you'll see when I was in 2018, I had the list of people wrongly removed. We tried to warn as many people as we could to try to re-register, but it's too late for most. And there's this woman sobbing, and her 92-year-old grandmother had been blocked from voting. It was going to be her 50th year of voting Her grandmother's in a walker. I talked to her. So they said she didn't live in Atlanta anymore. I went down the street to their home in Atlanta, and I see the picture of Martin Luther King there at their home having dinner. And I said, did you know King? He's having dinner at your home here. And so obviously she's been at that house for 50 years at least. And she said, oh, well, he's my cousin. He was my cousin. So this is Martin Luther King's cousin that they blocked from voting in Georgia. And that's how Brian Kemp became governor, by stealing election. And so now you have this thing where, unfortunately, too many Democrats are saying, like Adam Schiff, saying anyone who says that American elections are anything but wonderful is undermining democracy. No. We have had stolen elections, Adam. In 2000, 2004, 2018, Stacey Abrams was dead correct in saying the election was stolen from her. And she cited my investigation for Rolling Stone at the time and the case of Martin Luther King's cousin. It was a straight up steal. And I hate to say it, Adam. No, American democracy is more of a promise than an action. Maybe you live on the West Coast here, and we're all getting tanned and mailing in our votes from the beach, but that ain't Georgia.
It's not Georgia. So what's the answer to kind of wrap this up? Where do we go with this? I just saw a story today that there's a group called FaithWorks in Georgia that's trying to link up 1,000 churches across Georgia,
yes,
to do this. And they say, it's the first effort of black churches in Georgia to do this, to do formal operations. And I'm going, it's it's
no,
2022. Shouldn't we have done this already?
By the way, the guy, I'll tell you. I'm going to repeat what I said before. They can't steal all the votes all the time. And Biden did take Georgia, and despite removing 198,000 voters illegally, despite every trick in the book, Biden still took Georgia, and Reverend Warnock, who's running for re-election in November, won. He took King's place at the Ebenezer Baptist Church. John Ossoff won as well. I mean, they cannot stop history. They can slow it down. They can block voters. They can pull all these tricks, but they can't steal all the votes all the time. And that's why I'm glad to hear this thing. But of course, they didn't invent faith-based vote protection. It was started by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference at a restaurant called Pascal's. I only found this out because Major Turner, the guy whose vote was challenged by the Republican Party, this career military man, his father was one of the founders of the SCLC, and who had suggested that when they were at this restaurant with Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy, that they were founding the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He said, I think we should move over to the church so that we don't say that the SCLC was founded at a dive bar. So they moved over to the Ebenezer Baptist Church, and the rest is history. And by the way, I asked him, I said, did you know that you were going to change history that night? He said, oh, absolutely. So we're going to keep changing history. That's the only way to do it.
There you go. The movie Vigilantes, Georgia's Vote Suppression Hitmen. We'll get links out on social media where you can check that out. GregPalast.com, the website, coming out very soon. Looking forward to that. Greg, as always, great stuff. Look forward to having you back again real soon.
Thank you, Rick. Glad to be with you again.
Good stuff. Our good friend Greg Palast. I'm going to take a quick break right back after this. Again, GregPalast.com. Don't forget, check that out. Excellent stuff there. Back after this.